Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today there are two newly released digital stamps by Rachelle Anne Miller and I am featuring one of them called Snowman Globe. Now originally this image is like in a snow globe, but since these are digital stamps you can adapt them a bit, and so I wanted it bigger on my card and without the globe so that I really could have a whole scene on top of that background. So I removed the globe around it by just covering it up with some really weird shapes on Word, because I am always editing or deciding upon the size of my digital stamps in that program. But if you have other programs, there are other ways, of course, to adapt maybe that digital stamp that you want to use. So I printed kind of really large. It's going to cover my complete background, well, my complete panel. And so I started coloring with my Copics. I'm also going to create a Copic colored background for this card. Really simple. In case you want to revisit the combinations, you can find them on my blog post. Something that I had here was while I printed this image, my printer smudged the image a tiny bit so that one eye isn't that crisp, and there are a few spots in the background. So that's why I actually started creating a kind of a darker background to cover up those smudges, and then later on I will fix that eye by just using a black fine liner to help me get that black into the eye again. So this paper is Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper, and I am coloring from darkest to lightest with my Copics. Now for the snowman, I just wanted to have it a bit with shadows, and so I just took a really soft color. You can also go in the bee family or even the violet family, anything goes actually. And I just flicked with my Copic markers and let it fade out into the white area of that image. Now before adding like the color to the scarf and then the band on the hat, I am first going to create my background, because I had no clue yet what I was going to create as a background, and I didn't want my accessories to limit my options. I went for a really simple, straightforward blue background. Those markers work perfectly together. I use them as well on just some combinations for the images that I normally color, so I knew that the combination would work and wouldn't give me a ton of issues to get like the transition between the markers to work. So here I'm just going to zoom out a bit to show you how I created the background, but I took some B markers. This is going to be my lightest one. It's the B32, and then I have a combination that I really love. It's a really soft darker blue combination, being B99, 97, 95 and 93. So concerning the area where I have that image, I'm just flicking away from the snowman to prevent going in the snowman with the flicks. So I'm just doing that, and then I'm building up that background. So I am going a bit here and there with the darker markers down below as well, to have several shades of that blue everywhere in the sky. And then I will end up with my darkest blue completely on the top. Really simple. So I'm first starting with that, and then I will work my way back through those markers to help it transition, but I don't want a smooth blend necessarily, because I really want several shades of blue in the background. Also, these snowflakes, if you don't want them, you can always cover them up as well before printing it. I decided to not bother about them while coloring the background, because that was going to be really hard. I am going to use later on some NUVO crystal drops again to cover up the fact that I went over the snowflakes, but that's for later on. So first, I'm going to continue with this background, working my way through everything, and then we will color in the accessories before deciding what to do with this colored piece. So here and there I'm going back in with some darker and lighter markers to really get those different shades in my background. And then once I figured out what I needed to do, I needed to extend my background a bit further. And so I went back in and back and forth with markers again. It's a work in progress, I think. And well, I like how it's turning out. You can also change it up and use different color families. But if you stay in the same color family, it is kind of, well, it's easier to do that and to have a smooth transition in your background towards each of the markers. Now, whenever I'm using this kind of dull dark blue color combination, I also really love using this pinkish reddish combination, which is going from this really dark R89 to just the softest pink that is R83. And so I'm adding my first layer, and I'm not really bothered about the difference between my mid-tone and my darkest one. It's a really hard one to get a transition in. But when I'm going in for my second layer, I'm going to do the tip-to-tip method to help me get an in-between color and to get that blend that I want to achieve. So here I'm just laying down that one marker, taking the mid-tone, and as you can see, it's way darker by just going with that one tip, the lightest tip, just softly against that darker one to take on a bit of that ink. And then I'm blending out that color, and I'm also going to take my lightest marker here, and then I'm going to fill up all those other stripes as well. So that's for the coloring of the accessories. So now what am I going to do with this colored piece? I took the basic rectangles from my elephant and I took the largest one to just have an A2 size panel later on. So I checked it and I saw that I needed to color more. Now it's easier to color ahead of time, I think, than to color after it's die cut. So I just quickly did that, and then while flicking and going back and forth, I also went a bit further. As I said, the work in progress really continued. But once I'm done with that, I decided to go ahead with the die cutting. I also needed to figure out which sentiment I was going to use, and therefore I took the Christmas words number 1 from Hello Bluebird, and I'm going to die cut the fa la la out of white cardstock and just add it on top. So having all that figured out, I could continue with the die cutting, and then we could start assembling our card here. So I'm just making sure that my dies aren't moving using some purple tape. And then I will start assembling everything. Now, as I said in the beginning, my eye was like, well, there was a bit of an issue while printing. So here I'm just fixing the eye. I'm also going to do the other one to not have a lighter and a darker black eye. So there we are. And then I'm going to add the sentiment with some liquid glue. You can also add multiple layers of the sentiment on top of each other, or maybe use some glitter cardstock if you want to. You can color the word yourself with some of the colors that you used in your coloring. Tons of possibilities with just one kind of sentiment. So I dabbed off a bit of the liquid glue to not have everything oozing from underneath. And then I try to place it in the center of my panel, and then I press it down. Next up, I'm going to adhere it to my card base, and then I will be adding some NUVO crystal drops, as I said in the beginning. Since I did not avoid the snow, I'm just going to cover it up with some NUVO drops. You can also use a white Jelly Roll pen and let that white reappear from the snow. I decided not to do that. I also added a few more to finish off my complete scene, because on the top, of course, there wasn't any snow. So I just kept adding. Actually, it's really addictive. Once you start adding NUVO drops, you will want to continue. So I just made sure to add enough of them. I did not go over the image, which is something that you can do whenever you're letting it resemble snow. But I just think it's so cute. I don't want to cover it with any snow NUVO drop. Not any. So once I did that, I decided to leave it as is. So this is my card for today. You can add more if you want to. You can add glitter, you can add glossy accents. But this is it for me for today. As I said in the beginning, this is a newly released digital stamp. It's a Snowman Globe. Definitely check it out. There is another one as well. I hope to inspire you today. Definitely check out all the inspiration by the design team. And I hope to see you back soon for some new crafty inspiration. Bye!